SimCity is a fantastic game, and this whole server launch debacle is absolutely horrendous, but I've been asking myself a lot lately, where exactly and how exactly should the blame fall? What's going on, guys and girls? It's GhostRobo, and I was going to show you guys some amazing SimCity server connection failure gameplay, but I figured that would be pretty boring, so instead you get Call of Duty Black Ops 2 on what I think is my favorite map in the game. Now, SimCity launched and had probably the worst, or one of the top 3 worst, secondary, tertiary, problematic launches in gaming history. Now, the reason I say secondary or tertiary is because, at least for me, I feel like the game and the developer should not really be blamed. I think that the game that is there is absolutely fantastic. I think that Maxis has crafted a really wonderful experience that hooks me superbly. You know, I'm not the biggest sim gamer, I'm not the biggest strategy gamer, I'm not the biggest city builder, but this one really just, it's really, really good. And I hate to see them feeling or receiving a big load of the blame for what has happened. Of course, it's absolutely terrible. You buy a game, you should be able to play it. And I see a lot of people complaining and moaning about DRM, but really this is a server issue. I don't really think DRM is so much at fault. And frankly, from my opinion, you know, you have the freedom to pirate games, they should have the freedom to protect them. And that's, you know, what it is. It's not to say that, oh, if they didn't have DRM, this game would be perfect, because what I'm hearing is that it's more of the issue that it is a multiplayer-only game, which is something that you knew going in. It's not like they try to trick you, and even though it kind of seems like a single-player game, from what I've been reading and hearing, that it is, the main crux of the issue is that it's multiplayer-only. The servers are the problem, not the DRM. There's no activation errors, and that it would have been quite the challenge to make this a one-player game. They'd have to rework quite a bit to randomly update it in that fashion. So we're not even going to talk about that. What we're going to focus on is where should the blame fall, you know, and how should it fall. And I'm going to give you a couple analogies, and of course, these analogies are not going to be perfect. No analogy is, so I don't want to see people in the comments being like, "Ghost, you're so dumb," because I know that it's not perfect. I know it's not one-to-one. Something like this really hasn't happened. Diablo 3 had similar issues, but I don't think to this extent, and I don't think in such a fashion as EA and Maxis are experiencing here with SimCity. And again, it's frustrating as hell. I get online, I want to play SimCity, I want to make videos on it, and it's like, nope, reconnect in 20 minutes, reconnect in 20 minutes. Oh, you actually are in the game this time? Sorry, the servers still aren't working. You know, I've even been playing, and it's telling me the servers are disconnected, so I have a red error message in the corner of my screen constantly. That's annoying. It's dumb, it's annoying. You spend 60 bucks, you should get a product that works. What I question, though, is how reevaluation of SimCity is being handled, and I don't think it's so fair to place the blame on the people that made the game or the game itself. And let me start in with a couple of similar situations. You know, Dead Space 3, for example, has online co-op. So if PlayStation Network went down or Xbox Live went down, does that lower the review score for Dead Space? And some people could say, well, you can play Dead Space single player as well. So I understand that it's not a perfect analogy, but take this one for instance. You buy a car. It's a really good car. Let's say it's a Lamborghini. You buy this Lamborghini, and for some odd apparent reason, aliens have infested our gasoline oil supply, and so gas no longer works. Is that the Lamborghini's fault? Should they be blamed? The fact that you have this really well-made, cool car, it just can't run? And I know that we're getting into semantics here, because it's like, well, if you can't play the game, then how can you determine whether it's good or not? But what sort of hurts me is you have to realize that gaming is such a multi-faceted thing that it's decisions are being made that may not be the choice that people make in the game. So I don't know, the full story, but it might be the case that Maxis didn't want this online only. It might be the case that they didn't want this DRM, but that was what was implemented by EA, and therefore I hate to see people saying SimCity sucks, constant dirt being thrown, review scores being lowered, and I know that many review sites are mainly a consumer guide for what you should or should not purchase. But at the same time, it begs the question, how do we really evaluate games? Do we evaluate them based on the game itself or based on the playing experience? You know, if I don't have a PC, is SimCity automatically a 0 out of 10? If there's a huge, blackout in the western United States and no one can play games, or all those games immediately lowered in review score? I know these are extreme examples, and I know that they only fit in a sense of the matter. But really, if circumstantial things dictate the value and the worth and the goodness of a game, I mean, is that really fair? Is that really fair to say, okay, LeBron James scored 30, 40 points and he's on the Cavaliers, but because the Cavaliers aren't so good, then LeBron James isn't so good. And that's the train of thought that some people are kind of following with SimCity, that because the server management is not good, because I can't get in to play the game itself must not be good. And granted, there are plenty of reasonable people who know SimCity is fantastic and are just frustrated at the problem. But it really evokes a lot about, especially as we move towards a digital future, especially as we move towards so many downloadable games, especially as we move towards activations and online passes and one-time use codes and the attempt to eliminate the used market, which is coming whether you like it or not. It's going to beg the question of how is a game truly evaluated? What are the merit factors? You know, let's take a single-player game. BioShock 4 comes out in a couple of years. And, you know, it's really great. It's a single-player game, but it's download only, and the service crashes, and so you can't access your copies. What happens then? Is the game bad? And I know that this seems more localized because EA are the people putting out the game, and so their stuff is screwing up, and therefore it seems like there is more of a direct target to blame. You know, if Xbox, you know, crashed and went out and you couldn't play your Xbox games, well, that would be like, hey, it's the problem with the 360, or it's a problem with Xbox Live, and really blame shouldn't be leveled on any individual game. But these are things that we have to think about. You know, people always talk about, what if a service gets shut down and I can no longer download my game? You know, what happens when Xbox Live or PlayStation Network or the eShop on the Wii or one of those services tanks at some point in the next 20 years and you can no longer download these things that you've purchased? But my main point is that I really think that a game should be evaluated on its own merit, and then if you want to make a purchasing recommendation on top of that, that's okay. But there's been a huge grouping of purchasing decision with game merit into review scores lately, especially as reviewers and sites and publications and people try to figure out how to appropriately assess the online components of games. You know, netcode is one thing. If the netcode is broken, I think that's something that, you know, let loose the cannons, really go at them for that. But if it's not inside the game, if it's not intrinsically tied to the product that is there, should they be at fault? And this is something I'm very interested to see what you guys think. You know, as somebody who has a really good internet connection, as somebody who has a really good PC, you know, maybe I feel differently, and maybe I'm biased slightly by the fact that majority of the time I can play all these games okay. But yet again, should the game be lower because not everyone has a high internet connection? I don't know if that's fair. I agree. Reviewing things in isolation is dangerous and just really, it's impossible. With human opinions and subjectivity, it's not possible to just say, in a chamber of perfect solitude, what would this game receive? But I would like to see things trend a little bit more towards reviewing the game itself instead of reviewing the experience, whatever. If you want to make a side note that says, hey, this is pretty freaking unplayable right now because of server issues, but then that's another point. Of course, they're resolving things. It seems like they're getting more and more on track. I heard that there was a 120% increase in server capacity just recently, so hopefully it smooths out, and hopefully SimCity can go up on the upswing towards a more positive, in a more positive light. And of course, they've sold tons of copies. If they're having this many server problems, that means that they are really pushing those units and filling their pockets. So I'm sure at the end of the day, EA nor Maxis will complain. But it's interesting as we look ahead. And we will be getting more and more multiplayer games that are exclusively online, more and more games that require activations. How do we handle this? And even if a game is separated into a single-player, multiplayer component, what if the multiplayer doesn't work? Does that instantly eliminate half of the game's value, half of the game's worth? I don't know. It's very strange. I go back to that car example. I go back to a movie example. If you have a movie, but your Blu-ray player, it doesn't work, does that make the movie any less valuable? And I know that a server is something that they are doing, not something that you are doing. But it can be thought of in a similar fashion, that the vehicle to deliver the product, should that or should that not impact the product itself? Love to know your thoughts. Hope you guys enjoyed the gameplay. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks so much for watching. Hit that like button if you did enjoy and want to see more discussions and topics and things. Till next time, guys, it was a fantastic day. Drink some hot chocolate. We'll see you all later.